I'm working on a city exploration game where every building can be entered. The city itself is fully procedural and is populated by over 1 million procedural NPCs that you can interact with. Last week, I had my first public playtest that involved the NPCs, and today I'd like to share a bit on how it went, what conclusions I came to as a result, and what I'm going to do next. But first, a shout out to my patrons on Patreon. Thank you guys for all the support and trust that you've given me. It's been extremely helpful for keeping up with the costs of the project. And if you'd like to support me, there's a link in the description. Last year, I released an environment demo in which you can freely explore the procedural city environment that I've built. It is still available on Steam, by the way. But just recently, I got to show the procedural NPCs to my community that I've been working on for the past year. In the few days that the playtest lasted, almost 400 players tried it out, and many of them gave me feedback on Discord. Several people reported completing the challenges that I proposed in my playtest announcement, even though finding the named NPCs proved to be hard at first. But I patched it up on the first day of the playtest to make it easier, and a few playtesters even found themselves. The general feedback for the playtest gave me a better sense of direction on what to improve next, which was its goal to begin with. Here are the biggest complaints that I'm focused on improving right now. The first one is that the characters were difficult to find once they were out of view, and the players kept losing the ones they were following. Another one is that they popped in and out of existence too suddenly, especially when riding a taxi, which broke the immersion. And the third complaint was that the distribution of people in the city didn't seem natural, with some spaces being weirdly empty and some crowded without an apparent reason. Of course, there were more issues brought to my attention, but these are the areas I'm focusing on right now. The first issue boils down to the fact that if an NPC that is currently walking from one location to another gets delayed for some reason, for example, if a player starts a conversation with them or they just get stuck, their GPU-calculated anchor, which is a hidden target they follow in the game world, will keep moving and might get pretty far out of range. So once the NPC is again free to follow their anchor, they won't be able to catch up. And once they disappear out of the player's sight, they can't be found at the same location they disappeared at because they will now reappear at their anchor's location instead, which may be pretty far away. In order to fix this issue, I want to introduce feedback to the GPU calculation that takes into account a character's real position in the world, so that they are better synchronized. This will lead to NPC positions being more predictable from the player's perspective. I'm not yet sure whether I want to add this feedback to all currently rendered characters or only the ones the player has interacted with, but I'll have to experiment and see what works best. To fix the second issue, I've added dithered transition animations for the character models when they spawn and despawn that somewhat reduce the visual popping. And to address the NPC popping while riding a taxi, I've done two things. One, I've moved the anchor point of where the NPCs spawn towards the direction of movement so that they will spawn slightly ahead of the player in a vehicle to create an illusion of a greater spawn range, even though it is actually still pretty small. And two, I have removed the normal visibility checks for the characters that are at the same vertical level as the player's vehicles, so that when you ride a taxi, the ones that are at street level become visible sooner to further increase the perceived range at which you can see them. As for the distribution of people in buildings, I've said already that I want to try and increase the overall population density, but that may not be possible due to the performance considerations, so for now I'm trying to improve their distribution with the current population. I've already added priority for party interiors so that the NPCs at leisure will flock to them if they find one in their vicinity. This makes the parties a lot livelier without too much effort, and it makes sense that people may want to hang out together when there's a party nearby. This also goes for outdoor parties. What I want to do next is introduce business hours for non-residential interiors so that offices and shops will be more crowded during the day and empty at night, while bars will be busy in the evening and at night and empty during the day. That way I can shuffle the existing NPC population to occupy spaces that are supposed to be busy at a certain time of day, rather than distribute them randomly, which results in the eerie situations of having one or two people in a large office or restaurant. I also have an idea to add a mechanic that will make the NPCs in the same space cluster together rather than just walk around randomly, and maybe even start conversations later on to create a more natural feeling crowd. But I will expand on that in another video if I end up implementing it. Another area I'd like to improve is the dialogue system. I've received some complaints about the dialogue UI being hard to read because it's too transparent and also being affected by pixel shader effects such as rain. I will be fixing these things of course, but I feel like I need an extra tool to write and keep track of the written dialogue itself as well. See, right now all of the dialogue lives in simple data tables which are quite difficult to work with. So I'm thinking about implementing an external tool that will support my dialogue structure while allowing me to visualize and manage it in a more natural way. Or perhaps there is already a tool like that, I just haven't looked into it yet. But I think I might just implement one from scratch to make sure it's tailored for the probability-based procedural approach that I'm taking with the dialogue trees. I think it would be worth the time investment, considering how much dialogue I still have to write to make my NPCs really feel alive. And once I'm done with these improvements, the city simulation should feel a lot more believable, and it'll be time to turn it into an actual game by implementing the game mechanics, environment interactions, and missions. That will be the most fun part of this project, I think. I will of course continue sharing my progress, so stay tuned and stay creative.